Welcome to the new version of Let's Talk About Real Estate podcast, the podcast for real estate agents everywhere. I'm Lisa B, and together with Bjorn Kunzel, we're going to talk about everything real estate. We talk about what's working, what's not working, what's new, what's old, technology, and anything else to do with real estate. We'll answer your questions from the Facebook group Let's Talk About Real Estate. So if you have a question, we can help. Join the Facebook group today. And again, welcome to the show. Okay, Matt Muscat, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me, Lisa. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, so I love talking about marketing. So you being on here, we're just gonna, I don't know, this will probably go for 2 hours, no joking. All right, so you're the managing director at Treadstone Funding, one of the nation's top boutique mortgage lenders. You are the founder and owner of Maltese Marketing, so that's your own digital marketing firm. Yes. You've helped people in 38 states, 4 countries with their digital marketing. And you've got a best-selling book, which I'm really excited about talking about, is TAG, the Tangible Action Guide for Real Estate Marketing. And you also have a podcast called Marketing in Other Markets as well. And you interview top performers on that too, yes?
Yes.
Perfect. Well, that's quite a resume. That's amazing. All righty.
It is, but at the end of the day, all of the topics are complementary. It's just marketing. I mean, I think people tend to overcomplicate marketing, and really whatever industry you're in, it all comes back to relationships, sales, and a little bit of psychology.
Yeah, sure does. Okay, so the book, TAG, the Tangible Action Guide for Real Estate Agents. Can you tell us about your book?
Yeah, so for the last 11 years, really since the end of the last recession, my job has been to meet with agents. So agents, lenders, salespeople, and I'll meet with 5 to 20 sales professionals every week. And when I first started, I was just so curious to learn what the successful people were doing to get business. So I would keep a yellow legal pad on my desk, and every time I heard a good idea, I would write it down. So 10 years later, probably 8 years later after that, I put all of those ideas into a book, and my whole goal was, I know that salespeople are busy, and I know that we have a very short attention span, right? Like, you're talking to me right now, you're giving me great eye contact, but if someone texted you to sell their $2 million house, you would probably get distracted and go sell that $2 million house. So I kept all of the chapters in the book to 2 to 3 pages so that you could pick it up when you need to, finish it quickly, and then get back to what you're doing. It's very much a choose your own adventure guide. And there's different topics for different types of realtors. Not everybody loves social media. Not everybody would like to go door knocking. Not everybody likes open houses, but some people do great. So I tried to include a little bit of everything so that realtors who are at different stages of their career, or who might be new in town, or who might have known everybody forever, will all be able to find something that is right for them for right now.
Is the book more so about building your profile, or is it about marketing in general as well, like marketing property as well as yourself?
A little bit. There's quite a few tips on how to market property, but I'd say 90% of it is how to get clients to choose you, and how to get them to realize that you're a trustworthy person that is capable of selling their house. We do have a couple chapters on how to get listings when you have none, that are more focused on general marketing and less on you and your personal brand.
Everything is about building a brand, absolutely everything. And going into this market here too, it's all about building your personal brand, isn't it? You've got to stand out.
Well, I think trust has never been more important. I mean, it's one thing to build the brand, and then it's a whole nother thing to maintain that brand into something that people in one specific area or in a specific niche learn to trust.
Yeah, true. Absolutely. Okay, so what are the top 3 tips from your book?
Yeah, so the number one tip from my book is that I think people right now, especially, and this tip, from 2 years ago when I wrote the book, it's more important now than ever. It's to really do more critical thinking of the value of the clients in your database or your sphere of influence. And the prime example of that is this. Most salespeople are so laser focused on getting a sale from a person that they forget that that person also has a company. They also have a job. They also have a family. They also have a network of other friends. And it's really important that you're looking for deeper opportunities. A great example of that is, what does your client do for a living? Where do they make their money? Because there's so many professions out there where that person would actually be better suited to refer you multiple deals than they would be to just work with you one single time. You know, a prime example of that, I think, is like a hairdresser, right? Like, no matter where you are in the world, there are people that you pay to cut your hair. And those people, my aunt is one of them. She every day meets with 6 to 8 people and cuts their hair. Every single one of those people is asking her, how's your day? How are you? How's your family? What's going on? And they're having a two-way conversation. It's so important to make sure that that hairdresser knows that you are the best real estate agent in town and knows that you are going to take care of her in whatever way is legal if she's able to provide you with a referral, a recommendation, something. I can't tell you how much business there is to be received from the people that you're already giving your business to.
That's so true. So that one person's obviously, you know, the depth of that person, they've got friends and friends and friends and friends that they can refer people to you.
And they're in a position of I want to say power. They have an opportunity to refer you multiple times. I mean, any one person you could think of in your life that talks to 50 to 100 people a week, that's the kind of person that you really want to spend a little bit of extra time with. So an easy exercise, the book is all about tangible activities that you can do right now. Because I think most people get into real estate because they don't want a boss. They don't want like a set schedule. But that's really what we need. We need specific marketing tactics that we can use when we plug into the office at 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning. So what I want everyone to do out there, if you want like a write this down moment or type it down in your iPhone, go through your database tomorrow and spend 1 minute critically thinking about 10 of your past clients and think about where they work, what they do for a living, where they live, what groups they're part of, and think of what your pitch could be to them other than calling them to sell them a house. I think you'll be surprised at the amount of value that you overlooked in your own database.
Yes, true. Absolutely. Okay, so that's one tip. Is it from the book? We still got another two?
Yes. So number 2. So social media, obviously, it's been around for forever. I mean, it's been around since I started in 2007. So one of the biggest things, though, I see as an opportunity right now really comes down to Instagram stories. What I love about Instagram stories more so than any other social media post type right now is that when you post a story, it doesn't even need to be about real estate or about what you sell. The only goal you need to have in a story is to make it engaging enough, funny enough, interesting enough, or shockworthy enough to get someone to respond to it. Because when someone responds to your story, it comes through as a message or a DM. And due to the algorithm on social media, on Facebook and Instagram, which is the same company, Meta, when someone messages you or DMs you, the algorithm knows that you guys care about each other more. And now that algorithm is going to show that other person more of your other posts. So whether or not you ignore all of my real estate posts, if we start talking about one of our other mutual interests, maybe we're both into kids or watches or something else, now the next day when I post my boring real estate thing, you're at least going to see it. And so I really recommend people posting at least 3 to 10 stories a week simply to get that conversation going. I can't tell you how many people I've reconnected with over the years by simply posting bait on my stories that has interested them enough to get them to contact me. And most of it isn't real estate related. It's about wine, watches, my family, traveling, something else. But it works because the next day, then they're like, oh, I didn't know you were in mortgages or real estate. Well, I didn't even need to tell them. I simply posted the same things I always post about, but I made sure I was varying up the types of content that I post.
Great. That's great. Yeah, the conversation. Yeah, and the algorithms. Yeah, perfect. All righty. Number 3.
Number 3, the number 3 one is really to get more creative with open houses. So I think open houses have become one of those things that most of us don't like doing anymore. They're a lot of work. They seem like an old school type approach. However, I think there's a better way to do open houses and to go a little bit above and beyond with them. So number 1, choose the right open house. It's very important to choose an open house and a price point for the area that appeals to the average consumer. Now, in some areas that might be millions of dollars, and that's fantastic. But in a lot of places, it's not. You have to really pick the median price point for a certain market because that's where you're going to meet the most possible amount of people. And then when people are signing into that open house, I highly recommend using a QR code that's in a nice, cute frame. Make it pretty with your branding. You can really make it pretty exciting if you want, where they're signing in and putting a couple key pieces of information. You're not just asking them for their name and email address. You're asking them the initial question, who is your real estate agent? Because if they don't have one, if they can't give you a name, they are now yours. All you have to do is work a little bit harder. Next, I really want you to ask them what their timeline is, and I want you to ask them anything else you could think of that really helps you to go deeper with them in that next phone call. It might even be, what's your favorite Starbucks drink, or what's your favorite something or other. The goal here is that when you make that phone call to them on the Monday morning afterwards, you can go deeper with them in that phone call and be memorable. If you do open houses, the other piece too is to do a certain number of them, because too often in real estate, we try something once and then we give up because we didn't get $1 million sale off of it. It's hugely important to play the law of numbers in real estate and to instead say, I'm going to do 4 open houses per week for a 6-month period. And it doesn't matter what results you get from one individual open house. It's going to be about the results you get in the long run.
Absolutely. Yeah,
That's
great.
my 3.
Yep, great advice. Okay. So what's the most important things for new real estate agents to focus on in their marketing?
New agents should put more effort into their database or sphere of influence. The actual statistics that I see time and time again is that the average, and hopefully none of us want to be average, right? We should be striving for better. The average agent will close 7 to 8% of their database per year if they reach out 8 times personally. Yeah. So if you have 100 people that you know, these are people that you would recognize or would recognize you face to face if you saw them at the grocery store. If you have 100 people and you call, text, email, have an event, call, text, email, have an event again, 8 times, everyone says you're going to close 8 deals. Now, 8 deals at an average purchase price of $500,000, that's quite a bit of money in commission. In fact, if you were average and you only did that, you would be making more than 90% of income earners in the world.
Yeah, that's so
it's
true.
that easy. But it's not just, most realtors, I think when they start, their broker says, hey, make a database and then put it in the system, and then we'll send out a postcard and an email for you. That's not what I'm talking about. Yeah. That is putting a bunch of crap into a system and bothering your friends and family. I'm asking you to put quality information in, actual phone numbers, actual email addresses, maybe a link to their social media profile. A lot of younger agents that I'm talking to are like, well, Matt, I would do that, but I just communicate with everybody on Instagram or TikTok. I don't actually have their addresses and phone numbers. So in that case, put a link to their profile so that it's easy for you to market to them in a systematized way. I think the number one reason that realtors or salespeople in general don't make it is because they don't have an audience to market to with contact information, and then they don't have a message to communicate out. It's really important to have both of those down pat your first year in real estate.
And I think you're right too. Like, I'm looking at changing to CRM, like a different CRM now. And some of them are just so complicated. It's sort of like all of that stuff I'm not going to use. I just want the basics. And I think that's what scares a lot of agents as well with a database. It's like, you've just got to, and if their database is Instagram or their database is Facebook and they're running with it, like you said, but I think you've got to get good at your database as well. You've got to get good at your CRM. You've got to, the information that you put in, you've got to actually use it, whether you're using your trails and all that sort of thing as well. It's worth spending that time to get it right and having warm leads, the conversations that the trust and the relationship that you're building with people. I think that's so important too, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think too, a critical mistake that so many salespeople make is that they put everybody in one big database, right? Like I'm a past client of yours, but I'm getting the same email as a new hot lead that you got yesterday, and they're getting the same email as someone you have that's already chosen to work with you, that's under contract but that hasn't closed yet. And I think that's a big mistake. I think we, as people who are about to make tens of thousands of dollars in commission off of these clients, we need to respect them and send them content that makes sense for their stage in the journey with us. So often I find agents who say that they want to, market these expensive houses. but their marketing doesn't reflect that. And I think that that's a huge way that we can all improve. And I think it would really help to elevate our entire industry.
Yeah, I think so too. Okay. So how should real estate agents use social media for their real estate business?
So I think the number one thing is that agents should come up with 5 different personas or topics that they can commit to posting about on a weekly basis. Again, the number one reason that people don't post on social is because they simply don't know what to say. So if you start by writing down 5 of your interests, 5 of the topics that you want to hold yourself accountable to, it's going to be a lot easier when you check into the office on Monday morning to say, okay, I need to come up with 1 post this week about my family, 1 about a listing that I have, 1 about my community where I live, 1 about a review of another business in town. Come up with those topics ahead of time, because then when you go in, you have at least a starting place of what to say. The second one, and I think, everyone that's listening to this podcast right now is hopefully already doing it, but it's to just follow 10 other real estate professionals from around the world, find something cool that they did and copy it. Yeah. I mean, like, I'm not stealing a customer from you, Lisa. If you have a great idea and I come up with a version of my own post in my own voice, I'm not going to totally steal it, but the idea, like, there's very few unique ideas in town. The idea is that if you follow enough people, you'll always have enough posts that you could recreate to make your own.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got to model other people, model what works, don't we?
Yeah.
All right. So what type of information should real estate agents keep in their database?
That is such a good question. So an easy idea, by the way, is to start your database in a spreadsheet, right? So no matter where you are in the world, every CRM system, you can upload a spreadsheet to it, an Excel file, a CSV file, etc. And they have unlimited numbers of rows and columns. So that's why it's an easy place to start. You can keep a link to it on your phone and on your computer at the same time. I always start with the basics. First name, last name, separated into 2 separate fields. And then oftentimes I think a nickname is really important, because a lot of stuff in real estate is legal, and you have to have a legal name. But the way that you communicate with people is oftentimes their chosen first name. Then I always like to have their address and have their area separated out. So the city, the county, whatever their address indicators are, it's very important to separate those out, because everything in your database that's in a separate column or field in a spreadsheet, you can market to. I could say, okay, I'm going to send out an email today to all of my realtors in Australia if I have a country labeled in there. And most people just simply don't go that far. But also, I want to have their employer. I want to have what they do for a living. I want to have their kids' names, their dogs' names. And I want to know some of their interests, hobbies, their dreams, their desires. The more deep, rich information you have, when it gets to the time in your month when you need to give them a call or a text, you will now have ammunition of what to say if you have all that information filled out. So I would say there's no limit. I'm constantly getting ideas from realtors of things that they're putting in their database that I'm like, oh, I didn't think about that. What a good idea.
Yeah. Well, it just shows you care, doesn't it? If you say, how's little Johnny, or how's the dog, or, it just shows that you're following on the conversation as well, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's fascinating. I mean, I just met with was a funny one. I met with a female real estate agent about a month ago, and she puts all of her clients' wedding anniversaries in her CRM system. And then she has her assistant send out a handwritten note to all the men that remind them 2 weeks in advance of their anniversary that says, hey, I just wanted to say happy anniversary. It's coming up in 2 weeks. Just want to make sure you remember it. If you need a referral for a florist or some jewelry, let me know. I'm happy to connect you with someone for your wife.
How cool is that?
She gets feedback every single time, and usually gets a thank you from the wife 2 weeks later when their husband remembered their anniversary. Not that husbands don't remember that, but sometimes it doesn't hurt to get the reminder.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great idea. Alrighty. So what's the lowest cost forms of marketing?
So, I mean, honestly, social media messaging is probably the lowest cost form of marketing. It doesn't require a CRM system. It doesn't require ads. It only requires you to add people that you've met in the past on social and start a conversation. The key difference, though, is that social media is not marketing unless you're doing it in a consistent way with a plan. So if you want to know the lowest cost form of marketing, it's when you go on Instagram or Facebook and send a certain number of direct messages out per day in an organized fashion to people in your list. That could be, you could alphabetize your friends from A to Z. You could choose to sort it in some other way, newest added, etc. You need to keep a record of who you've messaged, where you left off, and then allot time to it in your day. It has to be time blocked, or it's really just wasting time on social media.
No, I agree. That's great. Okay.
I do have, yeah, and I actually have one more low form cost of marketing. And this is one for new agents, especially. New agents have a huge opportunity because they have time. Older agents have experience and hopefully a little bit of money. So what I recommend if you're a new agent is call 5 to 10 other realtors, more experienced, older, successful realtors in your office every single week, or in your brokerage, because a lot of them might hire you to do either part-time work for them, or they might have you help their buyers and sellers for a referral fee. It can be a great way to slowly build your business while you're also building experience. I would rather a new realtor went to work for a lower rate for another realtor than I would have them take a job at a hardware store or doing something totally different. Being involved in real estate day to day will really help you grow your business, even if it's not at 100% commission.
Absolutely. Great. Okay. So where are most real estate agents dropping the ball when it comes to past client marketing?
Most realtors are dropping the ball by not reaching out soon enough. So typically what I'm seeing right now, so in the US, our Realtor Association just released a stat that said that 75% of buyers who purchased in the last 2 years regret the house that they bought. I mean, that's staggering,
Isn't it?
right? I mean, inventory, but think about it. It makes sense. Inventory, housing inventory has been so low for the past 4 to 5 years around the world that people purchased houses that worked for them, but that they didn't love. There was no emotional connection. They wanted to be in a certain school area. They wanted to live near some friends, but it wasn't the perfect house. It was just a good house. So the problem and the missed opportunity is the most realtors will say, oh, well, I just sold them a house last year. I'm not going to call them. They just bought. Huge mistake, because so many of those people, after that 1 year mark, their taxes probably went up. Things are changing. Maybe if they're younger, they're having another kid. They're getting a new job. They're in that stage of life. People are actually a lot more likely to buy once they've just purchased, because they're starting to notice things that are wrong with the house and their lives are changing. On their sixth or seventh home, that might be when, they might not be buying an eighth house right now. But I think it's a huge missed opportunity, and I see it time and time again. People for their second house use a brand new realtor because they thought that the first realtor wasn't there anymore, didn't care, wasn't reaching out, etc. And the first realtor just didn't reach out because they thought it was too soon.
No, absolutely. I agree with that. Like, in the boom, people they were sort of forced into buying a property and it wasn't really what they wanted. And yeah, so if they're, if they're approached now, who knows? But also too, like I use an experience, a situation just where I live here. And just before the boom, these people bought a property and it was like listed for like 900,000 or something like that. They bought it for, and in a couple of months, like really 3 or 4 months, it went up double. It went up to
Really?
yeah. So we've got a lot of people around here like that. That if you approach them, people that bought just before the boom, they might not realize that it's double, that much. They could walk away with an extra $1 million and move somewhere else if they wanted to, or you know what I mean? So,
Well, and like just the mention of like thinking about the fact that as a real estate agent who understands value that's tied up in real estate, imagine what would happen if every single day you contacted a past client or a friend that owns a home and just let them know what their house is worth.
yeah.
I mean, telling someone, it's almost like a self-congratulatory call if you sold the house. Because I could say, hey, Lisa, you're my client. I was just calling to let you know that house I sold you 3 years ago is worth $500,000 more now than it was then. So I just wanted to call you to tell me that I did a good job. But by the way, you're wealthy now. I
Yeah.
mean, it's funny, but it's also a very impactful call. And for most people, that's a serious amount of money.
Yep. No, that's a great call to make. All righty. Okay. So how do you determine your marketing strategies? Like, say I'm an agent, I come to you, I need help. How do you determine where I should go right now?
That's a great question. So every time that an agent comes in to meet with me, I first want to interview them for half an hour to find out all about where they came from, why they got into real estate, how they chose their brokerage, what's their family situation, do they go to church, what I want to know everything, because I want to know what kind of groups they're a part of, what kind of sports they play, and what they did before and how they were successful at that. I think every realtor needs to find out what their secret sauce is and figure out what strategies those will lend themselves to. So, if you were in a industry before where you had lists of customers, that's your starting place. If you're very involved with a certain charity, that's where you should start. Maybe double that and join 3 charities that are very similar, but be the most involved person there, and always, wear your little realtor pin so that people kind of know what you do. So I really want to get to know people so that we can figure out what assets they have that they're bringing to the table that will then guide the strategies that we assign to them.
I agree. So their experience and how that benefits a seller or a buyer, their past experience.
Yeah, because I think too often, like, there's a huge real estate agency out there that's worldwide. It's not where you work. And they give everybody a one size fits all approach to marketing. And so you'll have like an 80-year-old man in the room and someone's telling them that they need to be on TikTok. That doesn't make any sense. People need to focus on what their skill sets and assets are and use that to market. And we all have something. We all live in a different place. We're all unique. The world has millions of realtors, but we're all a little bit different. So we should all be marketing to a slightly different group of people in a slightly different way.
I agree. Okay. So how do you suggest real estate agents plan their own marketing?
Number one, you need a calendar. You need a 12-month marketing calendar where you can start to plot everything out and then work backwards from it. Because I think most marketing in real estate can become really overwhelming because you're trying to fit it in between all of the other activities that go along with being a realtor, which is basically owning a small business. And so if you're able to take one full day per year and plan out all of the random ideas you have for marketing for the next year, you're going to then be able to back out when you need to do what. Now, if you're an existing agent, you can start by looking back at your last couple closings and thinking, where did those come from? And then you can figure out what you did, what marketing you put out, or what magic you put out into the universe to get those sales, and make sure that some of those items that you did before end up in your next marketing plan. But every year, I think you should add something new because you never know what's going to work out. That's why I'm not afraid to try like any new social media site, any new lead platform, because it only takes one to work to really pay off millions. I could think of things I started doing 5-10 years ago that I had no idea whether they were going to work, and 9 out of 10 failed. But the one that worked really worked.
Yeah. And don't we wish we all spent more time on YouTube all those years ago and maintained that?
Yeah, and I mean, I know like is Zillow big where you are?
No, we don't have Zillow. No, we have
So,
realdomain.com as a portal.
yeah, so we have like, tons of websites that people use for leads, and a lot of them aren't good right now, but 11 years ago, you could get 10 leads that were $1 million price point a piece for $50 a piece.
Yeah, wow.
That was lucky. It's not like that all the time, but every year something new comes out that's a tremendous opportunity.
So you've already said, like, have your weekly plan as to, your categories of what you're going to post, whether it's family,
Yeah.
or an interest or whatever. And that helps people build the commonality with the person as well, doesn't it? Like if I'm watching your socials and I know that in your bio and everything, you talk about restaurants and you talk about, all those things. So it's sort of when you got commonality with someone, it's like that, I want to see that restaurant, or where did you go there, or whatever. So it helps build that commonality and the trust and all that sort of thing. And then planning out your marketing for the year. I think a lot of it comes down to planning, doesn't it? And where you want it to go, like the funnel of where you want your marketing to end up. Like where are you, where is it going to? Is it for buyers? Is it for sellers? And have a strategy around both of those things. That's how I try and organize my marketing and my clients' marketing, is what's the outcome.
Right. Like what is the goal? Like how can you take your goals and work a little bit backwards from there? And then, an easy one too is, just simply Google yourself, search for yourself on the internet and think, if a buyer saw this, what would they think? Oh, well, it actually doesn't say that I work with buyers, so maybe you need to go ahead that. And same thing, if an investor Googled, realtors who help investors in Australia, what would they find? Is that something that would be appealing to them? And if so, at the same price point you want, in the same area that you want, does the profile and persona that you put out there on social media, on the search engines, does that match what you're going for? And I think most of us who have never done that, the answer is going to be no. It's going to be a great strategy for you in Q1 of this year.
Yeah, that's a great strategy too. Yeah, Googling yourself is your niche there when it comes up. Yeah, definitely. Okay. All righty. That's wonderful. Is there anything else that agents should know? I'll put in the link bio and all that sort of stuff as well at the end. Yeah.
Yeah. I think right now with where we are in the market, scripting is becoming really, really important on those initial phone calls and in those initial meetings. I think too many people are taking no for an answer. I know in most markets that I've seen, the media has put out such a negative spin on real estate right now. I mean, if I see the word crash or downturn one more time, I'm going to be sick, because at the end of the day, 2022 is still up from 2021. Now, the market is changing, but I think that big change is really just a lot of negative media perception. Because at the end of the day, the only reason the media is saying this is because of interest rates and because of financing. And at the end of the day, that's just math. If interest rates go up, then you did a good job by buying today. If interest rates go down, then you could oftentimes refinance. And if interest rates stay the same, then who cares? You're at the same rate that everybody else is at. So really, I think it's important to ask your customers in the beginning what the most important thing to them is in buying a house. And if they say interest rate, you go into that topic. If they say the schools or my family or having a bigger house, then you can go into those topics. But it shifts the topic away from all the media's negativity, and it puts it into something that you control, that you know the answer to, and then you can help them.
That's great. All right. Thank you so much. And so you can help real estate agents in Australia as well with their marketing if they contact you?
Absolutely. So we build websites, we do all kinds of fun stuff, but hit me up on Instagram. It's Matt Muscat 88. Happy to answer questions. I love networking, and if you want to have me out to sunny Australia, I'm happy to fly out there and enjoy a nice flight. But yeah, I'm always happy to connect, and I just love meeting new people.
Awesome. I will connect with you on Instagram as well. So I'll put a link to your website for your marketing as well as your book as well. So grab your book as well. I'm going to get a copy too.
Thanks, Lisa. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, that'll be great. Thank you so much for your wisdom. Thank you so much for your time as well.
Awesome. Have a great night. Bye.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to Let's Talk About Real Estate podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show. If you have a question about real estate, then please join the group on Facebook, also called Let's Talk About Real Estate. For those of you who are interested in EXP, please join us at 10 a.m. Brisbane time every Wednesday morning for EXP Explained. Thank you again for joining us, and don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, and see you next week.